What have you done this week, Internet? Good God, this is going to be a long one because there is a lot to go through. Everything from new information regarding Bungie's disastrous situation and Game Informer disappearing overnight, to the Internet once again overdosing on copium for Half-Life 3, not to mention a ton of great game reveals and releases, as well as a couple unfortunate delays. So, take a moment, maybe grab a snack, and let's settle in to sort this week's mess out. Alright, here we go. Last week's video was completed before Bungie dropped the big layoff news, so I scrambled to get an add-on written and edited before we went live, but now a week has passed, we've had time to take a further stock of the situation, and if you somehow missed it, last week Bungie laid off 220 developers, shifted an additional 155 workers over to Sony, and another 75 were moved to an entirely new Sony-led studio to work on a separate project, meaning in one fell swoop, roughly 36% or more than 1/3 of Bungie Studio is now gone. Unsurprisingly, in the aftermath, outrage was directed at Bungie CEO Pete Parsons with a particular focus on his multi-million-dollar car collection. I didn't bother following that thread because what an individual does with their own money is irrelevant to the situation. Of course, if you took a look at that $2 million car collection and found yourself disgusted at the extravagant waste, I'm right there with you. Parsons' gaudy excesses make the situation even more anger-inducing if you remember last year when employees had asked leadership if they had taken pay cuts to stop the original round of layoffs, only to be told, "We're not that kind of company." Apparently not. But anger aside, what are the details of this mess and what can we expect going forward? Well, for starters, and I'm sorry Destiny fans, but Destiny 3 is not going to happen, and it wasn't even in development despite what people's speculation was. And that's not all. Payback, a Destiny spin-off game that industry analyst Jason Schreier had called an incubation project, was canceled a couple months ago and its staff reassigned to Marathon, Bungie's other ongoing project. Senior execs Luke Smith and Mark Noseworthy, who it was reported were working on Payback, are also no longer at the company, with the restructuring apparently leaving the pair no path forward at Bungie. As for Destiny 2, Jason Schreier had this to say. The company also plans to continue updating Destiny 2, although it will no longer pursue regular paid expansions as it did in the past, according to the people familiar. During one recent meeting, a company leader told attendees that sales of each expansion had declined year over year, including June's The Final Shape, so they would be moving away from an annual release model. So there you have it. If Jason Schreier's sources are to be believed, and frankly there's little reason to believe otherwise, then Destiny 2 is now just one step away from maintenance mode. After The Final Shape helped to rejuvenate the community, it's even more of a sucker punch to learn that players won't be getting anything like that again. Small updates are fine and dandy, but with no further substantial content updates, well yeah, I already said it, one step away from maintenance mode, and that is a damn shame. In the past few days, it has also been reported that these job cuts were inevitable, and would have happened regardless of how well Destiny 2's The Final Shape performed. So, despite the most recent expansion being well received, Destiny 2's fate seems to have been sealed for quite a while now. One of the more telling quotes that I've seen going around in regards to the C-suite incompetence for this came from GameFile. "I think Sony overpaid for Bungie," one former insider said, on condition of anonymity to avoid damaging their career. "I think Bungie sold things they were just not able to deliver." It's no wonder then that ex-Bungie employees have been blowing up social media, specifically targeting CEO Pete Parsons, who would have been directly responsible for the details of the Sony buyout. Imagine overpromising to Sony on a $3.6 billion deal, laying off over a third of your company, failing to meet financial targets, causing long-term and possibly irreparable harm to the brand, and still getting to keep your job. All the while, those workers below you who are directly responsible for making you those millions are now jobless. Now obviously Bungie has taken the lion's share of the layoff coverage this past week, but mobile developer Jam City and Armor Games have also announced layoffs, bringing the total layoffs for July to 368 minimum, with the actual total probably being a lot higher than that, as many indie companies and gaming adjacent companies aren't really included in those totals. Which means that the more than 11,400 total job cuts for the past year is likely quite underrepresentative of the facts, despite being an atrociously high number. For instance, last Friday's announcement that Game Informer is closing its doors after 33 years came after my news went live, and the employees losing their jobs likely won't be counted despite being part of the games industry. And yeah, the longest running US gaming publication is now no more. And even if you couldn't care less about Game Informer, when long-standing institutions start to fail, you need to sit up and pay attention. In this case, however, even more than the actual closure itself, the way it was handled was so dismissive and frankly disrespectful that it's no wonder tweets like this from former employees are going around. I'm furious about the end of Game Informer. It was an incredible 33-year run, and then GameStop pumps out this phony, empty farewell message. I'd bet money it was written by AI. Fuck you, GameStop, and a huge fuck you to Ryan Cohen. Of course, Ryan Cohen being the CEO of GameStop. Fortunately, former staff members, including Ben Hansen, the site's former video producer, have stepped up to do what they can to preserve the decades of information. The MinMax Discord group created by Hansen is currently spearheading the preservation efforts. Fans from all over are scanning in copies of their old issues in an effort to maintain some measure of the publication's history. Hansen also revealed that he created a documentary back in 2019 over Game Informer, and that may be released soon. So, if you are someone who cares about this kind of historical preservation, maybe look into helping out if you can. All of this depressing news serves to highlight the need for better labor protections in the gaming industry, and with more than 300 SAG-AFTRA members picketing Warner Bros. Studio last week, this sort of action is needed more than ever. The protest at Warner Bros. Is the first official action since the Screen Actors Guild agreed to the strike last week, and I would expect to see quite a bit more in the coming weeks, if not months. I also mentioned last week that the UK's Equity Union announced their solidarity with the SAG-AFTRA strike while lamenting that they couldn't join the cause due to UK labor laws. This week, the Equity Union have launched a new movement for minimum rates for game performers. This is important because, as Eurogamer points out, minimum rates have previously not been set by Equity due to prior legislation that prevented the publishing of rates without collective bargaining agreement. Now Equity is launching its new rates as part of its Game On campaign to fight for better pay, terms, and conditions for UK performers in video games. These recommended rates come after 18 months of work by the organization, and let's hope that it actually starts to help our UK voice actor friends finally get compensated appropriately for their work. And not just voice actors, this goes for all game performers in general. Let's hope these people start getting paid. One last thing before we move on, as a brief follow-up to last week's Humble Games news, Squidshock, the developer behind the recently launched Bow Path of the Till Lotus, are still scrambling to figure out how to manage console updates. Thanks to parent company Ziff Davis's incompetent handling of the Humble Games' apparent closure, some developers no longer have the ability to manage aspects of their own game. Due to this, Squidshock announced a Patreon page to support the game outside of its reliance on Ziff Davis. As of this video, there is still no word on just how the transition away from Humble Games is going to work for developers left high and dry from the shutdown. Let's hope we get some news at some point and Ziff Davis says, hey, let's help these people out that we just screwed over without warning beforehand. Oh, all right, now that we've got that out of the way, let's take a rapid look at what was released this week. It was actually a great week for new games, starting with Kitsune Tales, a platformer that wears its Mario influence proudly, and that seems to be working out pretty well for it. The Japanese-inspired pixel art game released August 1st and is sitting at very positive over on Steam with a little over 400 reviews currently. Mars 2120 has been on my personal wishlist for a bit now, and I'll probably be checking it out this weekend. The sci-fi Metroidvania also wears its influences proudly and makes battling your way through Mars look quite fun. This one technically dropped last week, but I ran out of time to cover it and I wanted to throw out a mention here. It's currently positive on Steam, but it only has 9 reviews, so take that for what it is. Maybe give it a look if it grabs your eye. Minds Beneath Us from developer Barebone Studio is a story-focused cyberpunk affair that looks like it oozes atmosphere if the trailers are any indication. This one takes place in a future AI-dominated world, but puts a spin on the formula with human brain-powered systems that force the lower classes into some dystopian choices. If you're looking for an interesting story-based game, this one's got 381 reviews, putting it very positive over on Steam. This next one I'd never heard of, mostly because it's just not my kind of game, but according to the almost 18,000 Steam reviews, developer Deepwater Studio knows what they're doing. U-Boat is a survival sandbox sim where you can control a World War II era submarine, and it definitely looks the part. If these kinds of management sims are up your alley, maybe give it a look. The Crush House comes out this August 9th, and it's a weird one. From the Steam page, Jay has scored the gig of her dreams as the producer of 1999's hottest reality TV show, The Crush House. The demands are high and the stakes are higher. She must cast, film, and produce each season. Play as Jay as you capture the budding romances and explosive drama of each unique season in the iconic Malibu mansion. And no matter what, remember to satiate the demands of your rabid audience or risk cancellation. To be honest, this kind of wacky, dark comedy vibe looks pretty entertaining. If the reviews are pretty good once it drops, we may have a fun time here. SteamWorld Heist 2 is the follow-up to 2016's well-received turn-based strategy game from Image and Form. The original studio was merged into Thunderful Development back in 2020, but the game still looks to have the original's appeal. If the original's mix of aim and strategy got your attention, let's hope the sequel is even better. We'll know for sure the day this video goes live, August 8th. Creatures of Ava is an action-adventure creature collector from developer Inverge Studios. You play as Vic, a nature explorer visiting the planet Ava, hoping to cure it from a widespread infection called the Withering. As you make your way through the game, saving animals, meeting inhabitants, and curing the world, you'll uncover not only Ava's secrets, but also learn about Vic's troubled past. It's out now, and early reviews are looking decently favorable. Speed Freaks also just launched into early access this week, and it's sitting at mostly positive with 535 reviews over on Steam. Caged Elements Combat Racer is straight out of Twisted Metal, but with a Warhammer 40k sheen. This one is free to play, and apparently there is a battle pass and MTX, and it's also early access, which, not gonna lie, that's a pretty gross combination, but hey, at least it's not pay to win so far. Cat Quest 3 is a 2.5D open-world action-adventure game where you sail the high seas evading the Pirate King. The Steam page calls it the cutest action RPG, and yeah, it's pretty cute. It's cats, so of course it's going to be cute and appeal to a lot of people. Expect plenty of silly cat shenanigans, paw puns, and way too many R's and words with R's if you pick up Cat Quest 3 this Thursday, August 8th. Another game coming this Thursday is Deathbound, and I'm really hoping it's a solid Souls-like. Developer Trialforge Studio calls the game a one-of-a-kind, party-based Souls-like set in a callous world where faith and science clash. In Deathbound, you swap between 4 different characters with their own skills, combat styles, and personalities, which is an interesting wrinkle in the formula. Here's to hoping it pays off. Signy All Guns Blazing also came out earlier this week, and unfortunately it's currently sitting at mixed over on Steam with just 56 reviews. The twin-stick shoot-'em-up arcade game looks really great, but we'll have to wait until more reviews come in to get a better picture. At the moment, it seems players find the levels rather tedious and the content quality to not be worth the $30 asking price. Maybe keep an eye on this one for a bit to see how things shake out. And finally, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown is coming to Steam this August 8th. Not much needs to be said here. It's the same great game that came out in January, now making its way over to the rest of us. I'll also go ahead and toss up GeForce Now's August lineup for the cloud gamers out there. Give this a pause if you need to. But we're not done just yet. THQ Nordic had their annual showcase this past August 2nd and showed off some known and unknown quantities. So if you missed out on the show, here's a brief recap of everything showed. First up, we've got Wreckfest 2, a follow-up to 2018's Full Contact racing game. Developer Bugbear is promising rebuilt physics, higher fidelity, a deeper armor and damage system, and fully customizable cars. As for the game modes, expect a reimagined career mode, online matches with server queues and skill-based matchmaking, as well as split-screen couch co-op. But my personal favorite is mod support. I can't wait to see Thomas the Tank Engine once again being ported into a game. Next up is The Eternal Life of Goldman, a hand-drawn platform adventure game from developer Weepy Studio. I'm really liking the animation and style in this one. You play as Goldman, an older gentleman out to kill a mystical being that everyone talks about, but no one has seen. As you dive deeper into the islands of the game, you'll no doubt uncover new secrets and challenges to overcome. As you upgrade Goldman's cane, you'll unlock new abilities that give you an edge in combat and traversal. This feels like a labor of love, and regardless of the genre, these sorts of passion projects are always exciting to see come to fruition. No confirmed release date, but it does seem to be aiming for later this year on the PC, PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and the Switch. Titan Quest 2 made its first appearance since being revealed last year, and I'll be honest, I'm on the fence about this one. Don't get me wrong, it looks great and promises to have a classic ARPG feel to it with compelling character progression and cool new masteries. I'm worried because I feel like ARPGs have come a long way since 2006's original Titan Quest. Player expectations for these games are quite high, and the existence of Baldur's Gate 3 is an absolutely looming giant. If Titan Quest 2 is going to stand out, it's going to need to be more than just a good old-school ARPG. We won't know if it can stand the test of time for a while, as there is still no release date, but when it comes out, it will be coming for the PC, PS5, and the Xbox Series X and S. Fortunately, developer Purple Lamp seems to understand the need to spice things up when it comes to older games. Disney Epic Mickey Rebrushed is looking like it's more than a simple glossy paint job on the classic game. That said, the updated visuals are appreciated and they look quite nice, but more interesting is the fact that Mickey will have 3 new abilities: sprint, dash, and a ground pound. The game will also have new collectibles, trophies, and achievements for completionists out there. It's been almost 15 years since the original was first introduced to gamers, and this September 24th we'll be able to revisit Mickey and Oswald the Lucky Rabbit on the PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, and the Switch. The headliner of the show was, of course, the Gothic 1 remake, and after 4 years, I'm glad to see the game taking shape. The overview trailer shows off some updated Unreal 5 graphics that look really nice, NPCs and creatures with their own routines and simulations to make the world feel as alive as it looks, and even shows off some new mechanics like climbing. I am mildly concerned about the combat, which retains that classic slow, tactical feel, but as long as it's done well, then I'm sure it'll be just fine. It may just be me, but I find my tolerance for that older style of combat waning in the face of the Souls-like takeover. Faster, impactful combat is just more fun for me these days. But I digress. The trailer also does reveal that while they're focused on staying true to the game's original vision, they are adding new stories and content as well as expanding on what was already there. So this definitely isn't a one-for-one remake, which depending on your hopes may or may not thrill you. Naturally, this one doesn't have a release date either, but it will be coming to the PC, PS5, and the Xbox Series X and S at some point. Aside from these bigger reveals, we also got two teasers that sweetened the pot considerably. First was a nondescript series of hellscapes with the ending, "Be prepared to ride again." That immediately made fans hopeful for a new Darksiders game, and then it was confirmed that yes, a new Darksiders game is in the works. Gunfire Games is behind the new entry, and while some gamers didn't enjoy Darksiders 3 as much as the previous games, I for one did, and I enjoyed Remnant 1 and 2, they're fun as hell. So yes, sign me up for another Gunfire Darksiders game. Obviously nothing else is known just yet, but I'll absolutely be keeping my finger on this pulse. The other teaser came from Tarsier, the devs behind Little Nightmares, and it is decidedly horror, though nothing else is known. I'm sure we'll find out more about both of these teases at Gamescom later this month, and yes, I will be covering all of that with multiple videos, so look out for that in a couple weeks. Now, the word around town is that a new Half-Life game may actually finally be happening. But don't get your hopes up. All of this is hearsay and internet detectives chasing potentially incorrect or old information, but it's Half-Life, so we gotta talk about it, right? It all started when voice actress Natasha Chandel listed working on something called Project White Sands on their resume. The reference is now scrubbed from her website, and the website itself is offline thanks to the internet's hug of death. But the information was already in the wild, and Reddit sleuths immediately began to dissect it, with one commenter pointing out that White Sands is a military test range in New Mexico, the state home of Black Mesa. The evidence got even more convoluted when Tyler McVicker, Valve news purveyor and YouTuber, released a video where he discussed data mined info referencing a codenamed HLX project that he claims is likely related to the White Sands codename, which is also likely Half-Life 3. And this is as far as I can bring myself on all the speculation. Could it be something? I don't know, maybe. Could it be a lot of nothing? Yeah, it could be. Speculation is fun and all, but I'm going to leave it to you guys. Is this something or is this nothing? While we're on the topic of rumors and leaks, there also appears to be a dev build of Black Ops 6, which has leaked online, and Activision are scrambling to take it down. From what I understand, the leak mostly concerns multiplayer, so if that's something you're interested in, go wild, I guess. And speaking of Call of Duty, last week Activision released a study on skill-based matchmaking that was an interesting read, and shortly after that they released a huge dataset for a Warzone map called Caldera. Praising Activision for doing cool stuff feels so weird, but I am glad to see this kind of thing happening. The dataset is for non-commercial use, of course, but it does give fans and developers a chance to dive into the map in great detail. Rather than trying to explain the technical details of what's at work here, the point of the release is to give those interested in the data new info to help them with their own projects and interests. Or, as one mathematician from Side Effects noted, the release of the Caldera dataset from Call of Duty Warzone by Activision is a game changer, representing the most intricate USD asset ever shared by a game studio. As a developer on the Houdini Solaris project, this unparalleled access to production-level test data is transformative. It allows us to ensure our software can tackle the most demanding and complex projects, ultimately jointly driving innovation and excellence in game development. So yeah, as weird as it is, mega props to Activision for open sourcing such a cool bit of data. And while we're touching on Call of Duty, Activision also has banned over 65,000 accounts this week in a big ban wave that will hopefully address the widespread cheating problem. And while that's definitely a lot of accounts, players will quickly tell you much more needs to be done. Hopefully this is a step in the right direction at least. Also, as you've probably noticed on screen here, there is a new cinematic trailer out for Black Ops 6 Zombies. More info is promised later this month at Gamescom, but we do know that this will continue the Dark Aether storyline roughly 5 years after the Requiem arrests. What else are the little birds chirping about this week? Oh yeah, Sega filed a Yakuza Wars trademark a couple weeks back, and we're just now getting wind of it. Now obviously, nothing is really known what this could or couldn't be, but anything Sega and Yakuza immediately grabs attention. Sega has confirmed that they will be at Gamescom later this month, so who knows, maybe we will learn more about the filing then. The internet birds are also squawking about Santa Monica Studio, the devs behind God of War, potentially working on their first new IP in 20 years. This one too is a bit flimsy, as it's simply a character developer's LinkedIn page, which has now been edited, of course it has. The original post spoke of a new IP but has been changed to simply refer to an unannounced project. So take that for what you will. Switching gears, Ubisoft revealed a DLC roadmap for Star Wars Outlaws because did you expect anything else? The next big Star Wars game comes out this August 30th for PC, PS5, and the Xbox Series X and S, but there will be more content down the road, surprise, surprise. An exclusive Jabba mission, the first 2 story packs, a character pack, and 2 cosmetic bundles are set to be coming out from launch day up through spring 2025, so woo for that, I suppose. Man, 13-year-old me would have seen this game and been over the freaking moon. I would have been so excited my little brain would have popped. And that's why we hate these companies, isn't it? They've taken that excitement from us and warped it into this disgusting industry full of horrible labor practices, predatory monetization, and dead broken games on launch. Okay, where the hell did that come from, Leebs? That wasn't even in the script. That was me just going silly. All right, let's put the soapbox away and continue here. Disney Dreamlight Valley, okay, there's a segue for you, also released a roadmap covering the rest of the year. I'll throw it up on screen here. So this month, the game will get Tiana and some more food stuff. October will get Timon and Pumbaa for even more Lion King fun. And later this year, a mystery character arrives that is the worst mystery ever. That is clearly Sally from A Nightmare Before Christmas. Why is the tease so obvious? That's not how you tease things, Disney. Anyway, paying customers will also get a Jafar-themed expansion this month with a showcase stream coming later revealing even more content. Arrowhead and Helldivers 2 is in hot water once again thanks to their utterly baffling balance decisions. Now, I haven't played Helldivers 2 since the Sony fiasco, but I gotta say, it's been months now and the devs still don't seem to understand their own community, and that's a little alarming. It looks like the anger is the exact same anger that's been flaring multiple times now. The developers, for whatever reason, think nerfing a PvE game is the solution to balance. Now, don't get me wrong, balance is hard, and no matter what you do, some players are going to be upset. The problem here is that Arrowhead routinely irritate a lot of players, not just some. This round of bickering started due to some fire-based weapon nerfs during a war bond based around fire. Taking to Discord, new CEO Shams Jorjani laid out the reasoning. The incendiary breaker was like 30% of all terminated sessions at some point. Very much a meta gun. Is that a problem? Yes. Is it a big one? I don't know. We'll discuss it. So the trick for us as we try to parse feedback is that we have some folks who are very loud, while a lot of you are in the game and like it? ? We don't know. I've noted that people aren't fans of nerfs, and performance could be better. And then replying to someone asked if the developers were even playing the game, Shams Jorjani said, "The stream had 1 to 2 devs and others were Sony folk. And let me tell you, devs ain't anywhere near your average skill level." That last bit about devs not being anywhere near your average skill level is a weird thing to say, or at least it was worded weirdly. Are you saying devs are above or below the average skill level? I feel like he was trying to reassure players that devs are good at the game and hence making correct decisions, but it also kind of reads like devs are really bad at the game. I don't know which is worse, to be honest. Devs that don't understand the game or devs that do understand the game but still make these decisions. In any case, hopefully this mess gets sorted out quickly and players can get back to enjoying the bug and bot slaughter. Moving on, do some of you folks remember how Callisto Protocol was supposed to be this great spiritual successor to Dead Space made by the former devs? And then it came out and it kind of wasn't that? Well, according to Callisto Protocol game director and creator of Dead Space, Glenn Schofield, the game was forced out by Krafton before it was ready. In an interview with PCGN, director Schofield had this to say: "I wanted about 3.5 more months. I was led to believe that that was the way it was going to be. In October or September 21, I was told, you're going to get the time. Put whatever you want into the game. So I spent that Christmas holiday just designing and coming up with ideas with some of the guys. And then January comes around and some of the Krafton folks come over and say, no, it's December 2022. In the interview, Schofield goes on to talk about the pandemic's impact on development, as well as content that was cut because of Krafton forcing the game out too soon. So, there's not a lot to add here. The situation is what it is, but it does suck to see yet another promising game borked thanks to suits who couldn't care less about the products they're selling. Hey, so the word around town is that the newest NVIDIA drivers include a fancy new Final Fantasy XVI profile, and you know what that probably means. Originally spotted by Reddit sleuth MWH, It's since been confirmed by multiple sources. We've already known Final Fantasy XVI would make its way to PC eventually, but now it seems it's coming sooner rather than later. I'm sure we'll learn a lot more in a couple weeks at Gamescom, as the man himself, Yoshi P, will be attending. And this next one makes me incredibly happy, as it appears Wolfeye Studios is working on some kind of spiritual successor to Dishonored and Prey. Studio lead and Arcane founder Rafael Colantonio, I think is how you say that, tweeted out this: "Fans of previous first-person games I was involved with, Dishonored and Prey, will be happy." And he is 100% right, because I have not seen the game, but I am happy. The Dishonored games, Prey, and even Deathloop are some of my favorite games. So yeah, I'm immensely curious to see what Raphael and the crew have been cooking up. Gamescom can't come soon enough. Lastly, No Man's Sky fans, take a look at this. Yeah, that is a player-created cyberpunk city in the Euclid Galaxy that you can visit. This is Rainbow City, created by Reddit user Monstav, and it has over 3,000 parts, includes bars, shops, streets, a metro, and a nightclub. Monstav was also able to increase the building sizes by utilizing known glitches to create this ridiculously cool cyberpunk city. I don't currently have No Man's Sky installed, but I'm sorely tempted to just to check this out. Here are the portal glyphs for those of you wanting to check it out, and if you don't know how to use portals, there are lots of guides out there, so give it a look. But what about new reveals and those delays I mentioned? Well, I've got you covered here. Capcom threw out a bunch of new trailers this week for Monster Hunter Wilds, highlighting some of the game's mechanics and weapons. The first video, just called Basic Mechanics Overview, is true to its name and highlights movement and item use differences between having your weapon drawn or sheathed, while also touching on your mount, a creature called Secret, which can autopilot you to your objectives. Being mounted also allows you to still be able to gather items and materials, use potions, and swap between your primary and secondary weapons, and also sharpens your weapons should they need it. The Slinger is back and functions similarly to past games, with some flashy flourishes here and there. The second overview highlights the classic Greatsword, and it's still just as slow and hard-hitting as ever. The trailer also shows off the Greatsword's focus attack, which utilizes a new focus mode, something of an evolution of Iceborne's Tenderize mechanic. The last video goes into more detail regarding focus mode, showing off the ability to aim attacks and guards, target monsters' weak points, as well as performing the aforementioned focus attacks, which do bonus damage to exposed locations. Also, as I was writing this, a new heavy bowgun and insect glaive trailers dropped, so give those a look. Still no release date for this one outside of sometime next year, but it is slated for PC, PS5, and the Xbox Series X and S. Zelda also showed off some new moves this week with her own Traversing Hyrule trailer for The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. I definitely recommend giving this one a watch if you're excited for the game. However, the quick TLDW is this: the land of Hyrule will look as familiar as always, with Castle Hyrule at the center. Players will also be trekking through sandstorms in the classic Gerudo Desert, exploring the waters of the Zora Kingdom of Jabul Waters, traversing the labyrinthine Faron Wetlands, home to the Deku, and scaling the familiar Goron home Elden Mountain. Mechanics-wise, the trailer shows off a quest log, a waypoint fast travel system, a familiar horse mount with combat and traversal abilities, smoothie crafting for bonus stats, as well as outfits and accessories to find and equip. More interesting than that, however, is the new bind and reverse bond abilities showed off near the end. With the bind ability, Zelda can tether herself to an object, which causes the object to move as she moves, giving players the ability to move objects impeding progression, solve puzzles, or even carry enemies just off the edge of a cliff. Similarly, the reverse bond ability tethers Zelda to an object, which allows her to be carried across gaps and the like. The trailer ends with a look at rifts tearing Hyrule apart and Zelda jumping into one, presumably to reverse its course. All in all, the mechanics of the game look quite fun and right on brand for a modern Zelda game. We've just under 2 months to go now as Echoes of Wisdom lands on the Nintendo Switch this September 26th. This week, we also got our first look at Spectre Divide, a new first-person shooter hoping to challenge the CSGO and Valorant crowd. And yeah, Shroud is tied to this project as a lead advisor for whatever that's worth to you. As for the game, while the cel-shaded art style may not appeal to everyone, make no mistake, you'll be buying weaponry, managing your eco rounds, planting bombs, knife running, learning recoil patterns, and holding angles like a square in this FPS. However, there are 2 core changes to the formula here that dramatically alter the game feel and gameplay. Firstly, it seems there is no movement penalty in the game, so while holding angles will always be a strategic decision, full-on firefights will likely be a lot more frantic. On top of that, all guns have aim down sights or ADS, and when you combine that with the no accuracy penalty, I can't imagine how different it will make the game feel compared to something like Valorant or CSGO. The second change is the biggest and comes in the form of the duality mechanic. Since Spectre Divide is a 3v3 team-based shooter rather than a more typical 5v5 affair, the developers added the duality mechanic to make sure maps don't feel spread too thin with the lower player count. In Spectre Divide, players will control a second body, referred to as your Spectre, and you're divided in two, hence the name of the game. Anyway, you can swap to your Spectre at any time, and if one body dies, you can move to the next one for a second lease on life. The secondary body will also give you a warning if an enemy is approaching, allowing you to swap and try to defend your position. And yeah, just thinking about that mechanic for a few minutes brings to mind a number of strategies like covering yourself with yourself, using a Spectre as bait, or holding multiple angles at the same time. I have no idea how well this will work or if the gaming community will care for the changes, but it is definitely an interesting concept. No release date for this just yet, but it's sure to make an impact when it does release. We'll just have to wait and see if it's a hit or a dud. Developer Chief Rebel unveiled Fellowship with an overview-style trailer calling the game a multiplayer online dungeon adventure, or MODA. With endlessly scaling dungeon runs, players must focus on working together as a team, with an emphasis on skill, cooperation, and strategy to defeat bosses, collect loot, and work together to overcome ever-present challenges, says their Steam page. The Chief Rebel team is made up of industry vets from Blizzard, Ubisoft, DICE, and Arrowhead, so there's no lack of experience here. Fellowship, according to the devs, is a blend of MMO, MOBA, and ARPG, though it looks to play very similar to a MOBA. This one is still a ways off as well, with no current release date announced for the time being. Descenders, the extreme downhill biking game that came out back in 2019, showed off their sequel, Descenders Next, this week, and it looks like we'll be doing a lot more than just biking. Not only does the game boast a soundtrack from Monster Cat, but it adds snow and mountain boards, new parks with new biomes and terrains, finer rider control and physics, solo and multiplayer play, replays, and character customization complete with a reputation system and unlockables. Of course, this one is still listed as coming soon as well, but when we learn more, I'll be sure to let you know. And as always, a weekly news video wouldn't be complete without some release dates and delays. And here's what we got for you this week. A Quiet Place: The Road Ahead, the single-player horror game from Stormmind, revealed an October 17th release date, sooner than I anticipated, to be honest. So we'll find out if this one has some good scares this Halloween for the PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X and S. Dragami Games has decided to launch Lollipop Chainsaw Repop earlier than previously scheduled, pushing the date up to September 12th instead of September 26th, at least for us here in the West. No word on the reason for the change just yet, or why our friends in the East seem to be sticking with the original date, but hey, if you're looking forward to it, you get a little bit sooner now. But we do know that both Prison Architect 2 and Avowed are both being delayed, with Prison Architect 2 being delayed indefinitely. Because of this delay, all pre-orders for all platforms are being refunded, with the developers adding the pre-order items into the base game, so that's nice at least. The reason for the delay appears to be the usual polish and quality assurance, so let's hope that once it finally does land, it'll be all better for that delay. Though this is Paradox we're talking about, so fingers crossed. As for Avowed, Obsidian's next big RPG, it's being pushed back until early 2025, and fortunately, it seems it has little to do with the state of the game. Rather, it seems to be that Microsoft is worried about having Avowed compete with such a stacked roster of games coming out this fall. And yeah, I wouldn't want to compete with the likes of Frostpunk 2, The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, Silent Hill 2, Metaphor ReFantazio, Super Mario Jamboree, Sonic Shadow Generations, Mario and Luigi Brothership, Slitterhead, Assassin's Creed Shadows, and Stalker 2 Heart of Chernobyl. And those are just the games that stood out to me at a glance. Damn, this is going to be a busy fall. I've seen some buzz online with people not buying the reasoning, and sure, it may be that it's just an excuse to work on the game without alarming fans, but saying none of these releases compete with Avowed is kind of a weird take in my opinion. That's like saying RPG players only play RPGs and nothing else. Nah, come on, just because Slitterhead isn't a direct genre competitor to Avowed doesn't mean that it won't take time for people to play and enjoy all these games before having the time or possibly the disposable income to spend on Avowed. But I guess I could be coping. Either way, the delay is fine with me because I, in fact, do need time to clear up my schedule for yet another game. We also got a pile of money news this week, as well as some actually badass freebies from the various free games offerings out there. As for the money news, Nintendo announced a 55% profits drop, or a decline of $543 million USD for the first quarter of this fiscal year. However, this was largely expected thanks to no tentpole releases. Last year, at this time, you'll remember that both Tears of the Kingdom and the Super Mario Bros. Movie were big-ticket products boosting Nintendo's profits for the quarter. Despite the big numbers drop, Nintendo hasn't updated their forecast for the year, still predicting a 20% drop in net sales. Of course, we're all eyeing 2025 as the year of the Switch 2 gets closer, and that announcement, as well as the announcement games, are sure to bring that stock price right back up and make Nintendo and all their fans happy. Continuing the first quarter losses, Square Enix revealed that game sales are down by around 18.4% year-on-year due to a lack of any prominent releases. Final Fantasy XIV's newest expansion, Dawntrail, didn't quite make it into this quarter's releases, so you can expect to see Square Enix report some better sales in the coming quarter. That said, they did still turn a profit in thanks to the layoffs back in May, a sentence I utterly hate having to write and read aloud. Warner Brothers looks to be in a bit of a bind, as this week the Financial Times reported that the company is looking to sell a stake in some of its smaller assets to avoid more extreme actions. Apparently losing 70% of your stock value in 2 years is rather alarming. Do you guys remember last week when I reported on the surprising and weird buyout of Player First Games, the devs behind Multiverses? I thought it was a strange move last week, and now this week I'm just scratching my head. You bought a studio, Warner Brothers, and now you're looking to sell some of your games branch? To be honest, this entire Warner Brothers situation deserves a video of its own. I'm going to put a pin in that for now, though, until some more information comes to light. But yeah, no one knows what Warner Brothers Discovery is doing, and it seems like they don't either. Staying on topic, EA released its first quarter financials and reported a 30% drop in income, 13% revenue slip, and a 20% net bookings decrease. Like Nintendo, though, EA was unfazed by the drops, even saying that the results were above expectations. And with EA Sports College Football 25 gaining roughly 5.5 million players during its first week, equating to roughly $500 million in sales, yeah, I think EA will be just fine. On top of that, Dragon Age the Veilguard, Madden NFL, and EA Sports FC are all in the pipe and coming soon, so don't worry, EA CEO Andrew Wilson will be able to invest in his own multi-million-dollar car collection, if he hasn't already. I don't have a multi-million-dollar car collection or even $1 million or anything close to that, but what I do have is some news on this week's freebies. If you're an Amazon Prime subscriber, your free games from August 1st and August 8th are Steam World Heist, Deus Ex Mankind Divided, a couple Tomb Raider classics, Gravity Circuit, South of the Circle, Loop Hero, Trek to Yomi, and Kraken Academy. My pick for these is Deus Ex Mankind Divided because I'm an immersive sim junkie. Check that out if you haven't yet, and that is one hell of a stacked Amazon Prime free game list. Likewise, PlayStation Plus members will have access to LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga, Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach, and Ender Lilies, and I'm not even going to bother suggesting one out of these. Grab all three, you won't be disappointed. Finally, if you're a dirty Epic Games hoarder, I'm kidding, play whatever you want, then you can grab DNF Duel, an Apex Legends bundle, and Signy All Guns Blazing, which is that brand new game we already talked about, so yeah, at least here you can give it a try without having to drop any money. I'll also toss in the August Game Pass releases, though they aren't technically free since you need a subscription. But if you are a customer, well, this month Game Pass recruits are Creatures of Ava, another game which we already touched on, the Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, I'm sure a lot of folks will be happy to hear that, and finally, Mafia Definitive Edition. We're almost done, Internet. Just a bit more. Let's cap things off with some crossover news, of which there was a fair bit this week. Unfortunately, we learned that Henry Cavill's stab at a Warhammer 40,000 TV series might not actually happen. In my Everything We Know About Space Marines 2 video, I talked about how Games Workshop, the owners of the Warhammer 40k IP, are known for being very strict with their property. And in this year's annual financial report, IGN pointed out that the contract between Amazon and Games Workshop allowed 12 months of creative guideline negotiation. These talks must be finalized before moving into full production. As of this writing, no agreement has been reached. Of course, we've got about 5 months before the December deadline, but it's not uncommon for TV shows and movie deals to fall through. In fact, it's more common that they fall through rather than they succeed. But let's hope for the best. But we do know that The Last of Us Season 2 will be releasing 2024-2025, and this week HBO dropped a quick teaser and some more info. Deadline reported that Season 2 will only have about 7 episodes, and it will not tell the full story of The Last of Us 2, but rather spread it out over Seasons 2 and 3 and possibly even 4. Depending on how they handle the story, this could be good, or it could be bad and we end up with a whole bunch of filler episodes. We know a great deal less about Sony and Supermassive's Until Dawn film adaptation, which is in the works. But this week we learned about a few new cast members. Maya Mitchell, Belmont Cameli, and Peter Stormare are now attached to the project. I don't know Maya or Belmont, but a quick look at their IBMs returns a handful of B movies. However, Peter Stormare is the actor behind Dr. Hill from the Until Dawn game, as well as having many other acting credits under his belt. I'm actually interested to see how the writers handle the story of this game because it has a bunch of twists and turns and player choices, but it looks like this one is still a ways off as production just begins this month. This week, we learned that JB Smoove of Curb Your Enthusiasm fame is set to produce an animated series based on High on Life, the goofy first-person shooter from 2022. Developer Squanch Games will be working with Striker Entertainment and Smoove's production company, Alternate Side, to create the series, but there's no word on a release date or targets just yet. Considering that the game features voices from Jack Black, Thomas Middleditch, and Susan Sarandon, as well as Smoove himself, this one has some great potential. Moving on though, I've got some bad news for anyone looking forward to that Borderlands movie, as early reviews are coming in and it is not looking good. Edgar Ortega, a film critic, wrote, "Borderlands feels like what an out-of-touch executive thinks the cool kids find appealing. There's not a single earnest character moment here, just obnoxious quips that feel dated as soon as they leave the actors' mouths. It's not even so bad it's good, just a complete mess." While Adriano Caporusso of Bite Size Breakdown has said, "Borderlands is a disaster, filled with every cliche you can ponder. This film swaps the mayhem and imagination of the games for a lifeless, unfunny, and visually repulsive dud with annoying characters and a cast with not 1 ounce of chemistry. Ouch." There are plenty more reviews, and they're basically all saying the same things, so Finally, I'm just going to throw out a mention of this one since we don't know any details yet, but Behavior Interactive confirmed that a Dead by Daylight and Five Nights at Freddy's crossover is coming sometime in 2025. And that's about it. It's confirmed, but nothing else is known at this time. We made it! Guys, this is my biggest script yet, clocking in at almost 10,000 words. This one took a while. If you made it to the end here, you're awesome. Seriously, I know these kinds of long-form videos aren't for everyone, but that's okay. I'm making them specifically for you. Yes, you, if you're still here listening after what I'm assuming is more than 30 minutes. Thank you so much. This month is just getting underway, and there is so much more to come later when Gamescom pops off. I'll be doing multiple videos covering the event, so be sure to come back if you're interested in that. Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to finally go finish The Last Faith and unwind for the rest of the day. As always, I hope you're having a fantastic week, and I hope you drop by again next week so we can do it all again. See ya.